Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Relics, and today we're going to go over Season 7, Episode 13 of My Hero Academia. And again, if you guys have been watching up to this point, you guys always know this is a spoilers video, so if you guys haven't watched it, feel free to skip this video and go watch the episode. I won't say it was like the best one ever. There's a few things to discuss, but we did get some good action. I like to see that, and some interesting developments. But overall, let's just get right into things. First of all, here's our heroes of the episode. I was kind of divided on who I should choose. If you guys watched it, Deku had the most action, obviously. He had the most screen time. He was the one who arrived and fought Shigaraki throughout the entire episode. But Lemillion also did some stuff that I felt was more hero worthy. Just because Deku was the hero involved in the fighting doesn't necessarily mean he was the hero of the episode for me. Of course, this is just my opinion. This is just my choice. So I was kind of divided. I felt like I can't just give it to one or the other, so I just gave it to both. If I really had to choose one, I personally would choose Lemillion because he did kind of save the day in a matter of speaking. So let's start off with how the episode started. So if you guys remember from last episode, the episode opened up with Deku still traveling over the ocean, trying to get to the coffin in the sky. They literally replayed that entire scene again in this episode, and so that's kind of part of my disappointment. Is there was a lot of flashbacks. The entire first 5 minutes of the entire episode was all flashbacks, opening credits, and just retracing our steps. So there's 5 minutes gone, and what we saw in the distance last time was specks of black, and I already kind of figured it out that it was the X-66 jets that Star and Stripe came with from America, and obviously we know that they stayed in Japan to help with the fight. And so I knew, in a matter of speaking, that it was probably them. Deku thought it was going to be the coffin in the sky in the distance. No, obviously it wasn't. They're here to help transport him to the coffin much faster. Not only just by flying, but you guys can see in the top right corner of this picture that I've put together that Deku actually used his Black Whip ability to basically leap from jet to jet all the way to the coffin to get there much faster than if he just kept using his regular quirks just to get there just by flying. So overall, it was an interesting maneuver, and the X-66 jet pilots did say that they believe in their sisters, or specifically their sis's words, and that their hope is to rely on Deku to win this fight, to beat Shigaraki, and basically restore peace to the world, and that she believed in them, and therefore they do too. So I thought that was obviously a touching moment. We haven't really heard much of Star and Stripe since the beginning of the season, but obviously she's left a great impression on the season itself, and of course on the heroes and the people involved. And so Deku definitely takes that to heart, and they get him there to the coffin across the ocean. We also could remember that Lemillion was trying to buy a few seconds, as Mandalay had relayed that they needed a couple more seconds, and of course he did his peach butt thing, which he stuck out his butt in front of Shigaraki, paused him for literally a few seconds, and he went, "Huh? What is that? What are you doing?" And as he turned around, we get to see Deku charging up his One for All abilities, and he ended up getting a great hit on Shigaraki. However, that really didn't do anything. Obviously, as we know, the growth surrounding Shigaraki's new body is just thick. It's just massive. We got all these hands that are just kind of encroaching around him. Got like this, so you can't even hear clearly. Well, obviously, it's an anime, so you can hear him clearly. But everything about his fingers or just his growth is just covering his entire body. Kind of creepy, but it is acting as a shield, like an armor, and it is protecting him. And so even though he got hit, it doesn't matter. So Deku lays on a couple more hits, sending him flying into the barrier, in which, by the way, the Coffin in the Sky had to lower the barrier in order for Deku to get in. So they did. Barrier comes back up, and it is a complete success. Barrier comes up, Shigaraki runs into it, gets electrocuted. Again, growth is probably protecting him, so it doesn't really matter. However, this leads into why I also thought the last episode was a bit weaker, was because of the fact that Skeptic from the Liberation Army was hacking into the Coffin in the Sky. And they made a big deal about Skeptic being involved in that process, and even showing that they have satellites in space, and that the Coffin in the Sky was indeed being hacked. And it never resolved how either they stopped it or if it was truly hacked or not. They never continued with that plot in the last episode, and I was kind of disappointed in that, because why even tell us about it if it doesn't play a part? We come to this episode, and we see in this bottom screen that they were able to drop the barrier and then pull it back up just as easily, and with no errors, no hesitations. It's perfectly fine, and we can see in the picture that the Coffin in the Sky barrier is completely back up, and everything's good. So, from last episode going to this episode, I do have to dock some points because of that. Because, again, it's a plot point they added, but they didn't continue with. Whether or not, obviously, that's the way the manga went or not. Again, this is just based on the anime view. And for me, it's just a lousy plot point that just really didn't need to be put in there. And I'm a little disappointed to see that, because the Coffin in the Sky being hacked may have caused issues with that barrier being brought back up. Shigaraki could probably escape because of it. And if that was the case, that would actually, been a significant issue. However, no issues here. All things good. So I guess Skeptic doesn't matter anymore. I don't know. He's probably going to come back at some later point, and it's going to be ridiculous. I don't know. We'll see what happens with that. But moving on, we can see that Tomura is actually unaffected by the electric barrier. Perfectly fine. Again, I actually totally forgot to mention this in previous episodes. He's being affected by Eraserhead's quirk. He cannot use any of his quirks, his regeneration quirks, his power quirks, nothing. This is all straight up Shigaraki and his growth. And the fact that I didn't realize this sooner is kind of mind-boggling. He can't regenerate. How is it that he's still unharmed after all the damage he's been taking since the fight in the Coffin in the Sky began? I didn't even realize that. Like, all of the explosions that Bakugo laid on him, he's perfectly fine after all of that. So I'm a little concerned about the consistency. It's my fault too. I didn't even realize that the consistency here is the inconsistency rather is that he's regenerating regardless that he doesn't have the regeneration quirk capable to work right now. So I'm a little concerned about why he's still so undamaged, but I guess that's something that we should keep an eye on. Then we get the scene that we've all been waiting for. Obviously, this was the ultimate gift from Shigaraki to Deku, and it is Bakugo's death. Obviously, as soon as Deku stops fighting, has a moment to breathe, and he asks, "Is everyone alright?" No, everyone is not alright. Clearly, in the top left picture, we see Best Genius is also still down on the ground. He is clearly immobilized, probably, stripped of any real energy left in him. Bakugo's dead. And obviously, as for any show, really, this is the kind of reaction that you expect. And I think the reaction here was absolutely perfect. Deku, is in shock. He realizes Bakugo is dead. His breathing starts to increase rapidly, and of course he goes berserk. His quirks start spilling out of his body, including the smoke and the black whip. And so, obviously, this is a big concern because now, as we've seen in the past in Season 6, Tomura actually points it out that when he gets this crazy, his movements are predictable, easy to read, and straightforward. It will make it much easier to steal One For All. And so, knowing this, Lemillion actually shows up, and Shigaraki, in fact, is like, that guy again. Why is he always getting in the way? Well, Lemillion comes in and tells Deku that everything is actually fine. I mean, of course, technically it's not fine. Bakugo's dead. Everyone else is beat up. However, he does say that everyone is still fine. Everyone is still breathing. We are okay. And this is just what the villains want you to feel. They want you to feel helpless. Like you should have been here. You could have saved their lives, but you didn't. You were out doing something, making excuses for yourself. But the villain constantly told him, giving him support, that they are still alive. They are still breathing. If you guys watch the scene, it showed all of them quickly in a matter of a few seconds. Sun Eater's breathing. Neji-chan's breathing. Mirko is breathing. In fact, she's not hanging in the tree anymore. Best Jeanist is technically, still there, up and alive, but just kind of demoralized. And of course, he said that Edshot is trying to bring Bakugo back to life. He is trying to keep his heart beating. But obviously, in this case, like I said before, Edshot should die from this. As Best Jeanist says, there is no coming back from this. So Edshot should die from this and cease to exist. And so it is not great. The circumstances are actually very dire. But Lemillion's right. They fought up to this point and they've survived this long. And now it is up to Deku to make it worth, all their efforts. And with that, Deku calms down and he thanks Lemillion for the pep talk, telling him thank you, and basically it's time to fight. And Lemillion's like, yeah, let's do this, hero. He calls Deku a hero. I love this shot, by the way. I love Lemillion's expression on his face, considering that up to this point he's been suffering from watching all of his comrades, all of his friends, his best friends in Sun Eater, Neji-chan, get beat, and he couldn't do anything. And so to see his face go from desperation from the last episode when he did his peach to this is absolutely inspiring. I love it. And I think, obviously, he can't do anything to help Deku in this fight, but he does do something else. So we'll get back to that. So with a calm, mindset now, Deku is ready to fight for reals. With a calm, view of what he has to do. He's not going to be blinded by anger or regrets or anything like that. So One For all the users are behind him. He is ready to fight Shigaraki and win this war, basically. But we also get to see that they talk about how Deku needs to stay focused. At the main, plot at hand is that Shigaraki is the enemy, and if he cannot be saved, they have to kill him. However, they do see kind of strands of Tomura still inside the body, the mindset, because right now it's kind of like more of All For One than it is Tomura. And so they're wondering, is there any bit of his self-consciousness left? And based on, obviously, I'm gonna call him All For One in this moment, just because that's kind of where he is at now. So All For One's in control of their body, and he says that Tomura is dead, or that kid is dead. He no longer exists. I am basically All For One and Shigaraki put together. We are one existence now. However, Lemillion says that isn't the case, because a few episodes ago he insulted Shigaraki as he was fighting and said he had no friends. and he must have been lonely, and he's like, I do have friends. Mon liked me, my dog liked me, and they wanted to play with me. And he got really, he threw a tantrum like a kid would, and they made Lemillion have to apologize, which is pretty hilarious. I thought that scene was funny. But overall, Lemillion's explaining that no, there is still something in there. That kid is still in there. We also get to see that Tomura is still in there mindset-wise because of the fact that I believe this is supposed to be his father. At least I think that's his father, represented through one of his fingers that expanded from his growth, even in this new transformed defensive form. And Nana Shimura, the 7th user of One for All, she realizes this, and she says that he is still in there somewhere. Even though All for One says that he is no longer there, their existence is now one. This face here, the fingers themselves were transformed into individual heads from the last episode. It represents that there is still some kind of life in Tomura, that his consciousness is still there, and he can still be saved as far as what Deku wants to achieve. And so that's where the fight begins, and we get to see Shigaraki, or All for One. I'm going to call him All for One now at this point, like I said, because he is kind of in control. He actually jumps up so hard off the ground, from the top left to the top right to the bottom left to the bottom right. He jumped up so hard that not only did he destroy most of the ground beneath him, like the panels of the ground. Remember, the Coffin in the Sky is being made from individual metallic panels that are being replaced by Kreti, as well as the rest of the Coffin in the Sky crew. He jumped up so hard, it blew up like majority of the ground, and there's debris floating in the sky now. And it pushed the Coffin in the Sky down. So I'm guessing gravity is a little bit off here, because we can also see in the bottom right corner, Hatsune is floating while holding a box. It is clear cut that, I don't know, it was kind of funny actually, because you can see the other people, they're all like still on the ground holding things, but Mei is kind of floating. That's kind of funny, but no care in the world what's happening. Gotta keep the Coffin in the Sky running. But it's insane because we get to see how much power this growth defensive form is transforming all for One, and how much power he gets just from a simple jump. But we move on, and we get to see Deku's powers come out. This is going to be the first time, actually, that we get to see Deku utilize One for All in all fashions. Every ability being used all at the same exact time. And I think that is one of the highlights of this episode. Not just because the majority of the episode is about this fight, but we get to see all the users come into play. Maybe they didn't all interact with Deku, but we get to see their powers all utilized together in one fight. And so we get to see the Black Whip utilized with I forget all of the moves. I think this was Fajin, and then of course all the other stuff combined. Pulling down All for One from the sky. His attacks are kind of useless. He can't actually lay a hit on Deku. We also get to see the second user of One for All, Kudo. He has the ability Gear Shift, and Gear Shift allows him to shift gears, per se, of his speed. In a way, this quirk is actually kind of broken, but as Kudo actually explains to us, that as One for All has grown, so has the quirks that have been accumulated within the one quirk, One for All. And Gear Shift, is being the first quirk accepted, was obviously transformed in a way that it allows the user to shift gears in reality. So we get to see this firsthand too. We also get a little demonstration as well. Kudo says that initially when he used the quirk, he could only shift gears of small projectiles. For example, a floating knife. He can change the speed in which the knife is thrown by increasing the speed of it or decreasing the speed of it. And during his fight for versus All For One in the past, that he tried to use it to kill All For One, but unfortunately failed because All For One could see it coming. But we don't know the result of that fight, how that fight ended. We clearly see that Kudo was beaten and being strangled, but I don't know how he died. We don't know what the result of that was, how All For One became, did he survive that as well? But gear shift in general is the main focus here throughout this fight, and the fact that Deku is now utilizing it is actually great to see. We also get to see the result of this gear shift, and from the top picture, we can see like basically phasing images of Deku being left behind him as a trail. Trail is speed, and he's able to shift all the way in front of All For One, just straight up get in front of him and lay in a solid punch. And we see this being used in combination with his other quirks, such as All Might's quirk, where he can just unleash an amazing amount of force into his punches and shift gears while doing it, going faster and allowing him to have more of an impact. So I thought that was great to see. We don't get to see just one hit. It was actually quite a few hits that he just sends Shigaraki, All For One, into the sky again. And then going into the sky again, gear shifting again into the sky, leaping past him. And even though All For One's taking damage, he says that it's not enough. These physical attacks aren't going to be enough to stop him. And I agree. It's a little unfortunate and repetitive that Deku is using basically physical force to try and destroy this All For One monster. However, we know that physical damage won't be enough to break through the growth, because it is a thick, armor that is surrounding the main core of Shigaraki. But we get to see this cool scene where Deku gets to fly in the sky and basically send down I don't know how you want to explain it. I just wanted to say it was like a lightning fist of power straight through All For One and send him flying back down to the ground. Unfortunately, the scene itself was cooler than the actual end result, because by the end of the scene, he just kind of just flew down and just landed in the ground. A little disappointed on that, a little, the end effect, but overall, it was still a really cool scene, really cool animation here. We also get to see Deku fly down. I mean, look at his face. He's flying at an immense amount of speed that it's causing him to, I don't know how you want to explain it. I just think this thing is cool. I don't know how to explain it. It just looks really cool. And then we see, obviously, they take the fight to the ground. And All For One thinks, okay, well, I got to time my attacks right and predict his movements. But he doesn't understand how gear shift has changed through One For All. And so he thinks that Deku is going to fly into his punch. Unfortunately, Deku shifts gears again, resulting in slowing his entire speed, his reality of speed, down to a slower momentum. We see here in this picture that All For One is throwing his fist, trying to hit him, misses because he swung too early, because Deku slowed down in reality. And then once he misses, he shifts gears again and will increase his speed so he can then now punch All For One, down. And I thought this was a pretty cool scene. It definitely explained the gear shift very well and how the quirk has evolved, and it's coming in handy now. Obviously, this is the first time we've seen it, and so I think it did a really good job explaining how it works and how it has basically given Deku the power to be able to outmaneuver All For One in this fight. And then we also get to see a really cool scene where all the users are coming together throughout in this fight, and they're all giving Deku their power, their support, including All Might's soul, which is in the very bottom of the left side and at the top on the right. I thought this picture was really cool. I cropped it just a tiny bit, but it shows all of the users combined, including the first user, Yoichi Shigaraki. They're all coming together, giving Deku his power, and unleashing one final, attack. And here, I'll just show you guys real quick. We get this blinding light. I thought this was cool. Sorry if it's a little blurry. Obviously, if you guys saw the scene, they were actually not the main focus. It was showing the whole coffin in the sky and showing the how bright it is, the relevance of this attack. We can see clearly One for All combined is a series of colors, obviously creating like this rainbow of light. I thought this was really cool, and we also get to see the coffin in the sky being lit up from this scene as well from a distance. It is an absolutely beautiful scene, and they're coming together for one last attack each. One giant fist growth from All for One versus Deku's fist of One for All. So I thought that was a pretty cool scene. I also want to mention why Lemillion is also my hero. Not only did he keep Deku calm and focused and save him from going berserk and basically, losing the fight, he also was around and got everyone else to safety. So he mentioned to Deku that everyone's alive, everyone is still fine, and everyone was fighting for you to arrive and giving you time. But after all that, now that Deku's here, what can Lemillion do? Well, he can help and be a hero. He can get others to safety. He's carrying Neji-chan as that final attack is starting to happen. We clearly see that earlier in the episode he was actually with Mirko, and we can see here and now in this picture that he brought them together. He's regrouping everybody, Mirko, Sun Eater, and now Neji-chan together. Obviously, Edshot is still with Best Jeanist and is trying to bring back Bakugo, wherever they may be. Either way, they are all they're regrouping. They're fine, kind of, but overall, I think Lemillion was doing a great job as support, not necessarily as a frontline guy because he doesn't have the power to do that. But I thought it was pretty cool, and that's why I also put him as the hero of the episode, because without him, we don't know if these guys would be in danger. Would they be in the way? Would they get more hurt? And of course, who would have kept Deku from going berserk? Obviously, it was him, and I think that's why he's one of the more important characters throughout this, not just this fight here, but in the past as well. He brings a lot of morale to everyone's spirits, and I think that goes to show how versatile of a hero he is as a person. He's not just a straightforward, it's just you gotta be a hero or not. There's times where he has to, take a step back, be the support. He has to give words of encouragement, make sure that everyone is still fine. And I think that's very important for the heroes in general, for hero work. I think that's something that's kind of been missing for the past couple seasons because of all the battles we've been having, all the the war breaking out. We forget what heroes really are, what their true mindset and pro work was in the past, and I think Lemillion definitely fits that book. He's obviously grown since we first met him, and I think that's really cool to see that he still gets to do work and still gets to be a really good hero represented in this season. I may be rambling on about that, but that's my opinion about it. I think he's a pretty cool hero. Overall, he's not like my most favorite hero, but for sure I like him as a character a lot. And after I think his character development throughout the entire show has been really good, really steady. Even though he lost his quirk and then he got it back, I think it's amazing, and I think he deserves all of the praise I'm giving him. So yeah, Deku leaves a nice big hit in his final attack, destroying, not just beating him, he destroyed the entire fist of growth that All For One was using in that final attack, piercing through it, shredding it to pieces. We see all the fingers going flying in debris. That's just gross, by the way. And he lays a solid punch straight through the core of All For One. And this leaves, like, not even a joke, this literally leaves a hole a dent in his entire body. So first of all, how is he alive? I don't know. Again, he has no regeneration quirks active right now because Phantom Thief is still negating his quirks with Eraserhead's help. So there's no way for him to actually have the capability to regenerate. So how is he alive? I don't know. But we get to see the connection between One for All and All for One. The powers are able to link their minds, and they see this vision here. This isn't technically reality. It's kind of like in a time space of its own, where both the One for All users can appear as well as see All for One. They can see each other, and they look into this hole that Deku just blew through All for One's chest, and they can see that All for One is bleeding out. The entire fight, all up to this point, the union between All for One and Tomura is starting to become unbalanced, and All for One is bleeding out from this unbalance. Their union is no longer, cohesive. They're kind of ripping each other apart. They don't want, rather I should say, Tomura doesn't really want this to be, their end or their end goal. He wants his own mind, his own body, and all that stuff. And so their union of their minds is not working out right. I'm trying to explain it in a way I can even understand it myself. Either way, it's just not working out, and we know that All for One's trying to take full control of Shigaraki's body. However, he is fighting back. The innocence inside him that wants to be saved is still fighting back, and that's why this is happening. However, to the end of this battle and close out this episode, we also get to see that even though he blew a hole through his entire core, something is still there. Eraserhead is actually the one who mentions it, that something is still there. Like, what is this? What is coming out of Shigaraki's body right now? And he's just screaming in agony pain right now. Like, what is this red, splotchy, skin that is popping up? And I was thinking to myself, don't tell me he just regenerated, because throughout the entire episode, even in the beginning, that's when I realized that I've been looking at it like he's been regenerating, but he can't use the regeneration quirk. And he even mentions that he hasn't even used any of his quirks. And so I'm like, so what is this? It's another version of growth, maybe? I'm thinking to myself in this moment, All for One might actually pop out of Shigaraki's body, perhaps. I'm not saying that with 100% confidence, but that's kind of my assumption here. It can't just be he regenerates his body. That would just be too simple, and I think unrealistic, considering he can't regenerate. And he just said he's not using any quirks, so he can't regenerate it. So I'm thinking that a version of All for One is going to pop out of his body, as disgusting as that sounds, and they're going to fight as two people. Maybe. That's my assumption, but that's how this fight ended. And then, of course, we get to see a few other locations being set up. And then we get to see Spinner in his giant, muscular, crazy monster form again. I don't know why the episode ended on him. It really was unnecessary. We don't need to see Spinner. If you want to go back to him in the next episode, just start it there. We don't need to see all these recaps and stuff like that from other locations, past episodes, and what's going on. We know what's going on everywhere else. Everywhere else is fighting. And this is why I was really upset about having to see all these different places throughout the entire season so far. Even though it's cool to see the other heroes in action, everything is happening at the same time. And again, this episode had so many flashbacks and so many recaps that we only got like 17 minutes or 15 to 17 minutes of actual new information or new animation that we haven't seen before. And I was quite disappointed, because if you take opening and ending credits, the preview, the recap, like that took over like 5 to 6, 7 minutes. And I'm a little I'm a little disappointed in that this episode was so short, even though it was still a 23-minute episode. There wasn't really much more information that we got. And so I'm a little disappointed. This ending scene with Spinner didn't need to happen. I'd rather have seen a couple more minutes of what's happening with the fight, or even if it's a couple more minutes of dialogue, something to help the story progress, not just see these other things that are going on that we already know is going on. Because clearly, Spinner is this big giant monster now, but he hasn't done anything. I mean, there's fire and there's smoke, sure, but that's happening everywhere. So it doesn't really give us any information on what's happening there. And that's kind of pointless, it's kind of boring, and I didn't want to see that. But overall, I had to give this one a tougher rating just because, again, like I said, it was shorter as far as new stuff to see. We didn't really get too much more information. The only big thing was One for All versus All for One. That's basically this episode. And that's the reason why Deku is the hero of the episode as well, because it was focused on him. He did majority of the fighting. He did majority of the work on screen. And, it's kind of hard to say he wasn't the hero, considering he was able to technically beat up All for One in a matter of speaking. At this point, because we don't know what's happening with his body right now, with Shigaraki's body, technically, it doesn't look like he sustained as much damage as I would have thought he would have, considering that Deku's One for All ability literally just destroyed the entire growth of, fist of growth, and was able to lay a solid hit through his core. So I am a little disappointed in how that turned out. So this is the fight that we've kind of been looking forward to, and it wasn't as great as I thought it was going to be. I will admit it was a little bit lackluster. I like the utilization of all the One for All abilities, but I was expecting a little bit more action, a little bit more speed, considering that we've seen so many battles with All for One up to this point in Shigaraki's body. I honestly think all of Mirko's fights with him were a lot better looking. Sun Eater, Nejire-chan, and Lemillion working together was cooler. It's just a little bit lackluster to see that Deku just kind of just threw his fists around a couple times and then that's it. I was expecting a little bit more action, a little bit more of a beatdown, but that's not what we got, and I'm a little disappointed by that. And again, like I said, the flashbacks and stuff, it just takes too much time out. So I'm unfortunately going to give this episode a 4 out of 10. It's a below average episode for me. I didn't really find myself really inspired by anything here, except for Lemillion's actions, and so kind of a bit of a letdown. Again, just because I rate it a 4 out of 10 as a below average rating doesn't mean it's a bad episode. I still enjoyed, most of the episode. It's just the fact that I don't want to see repeats, and that's kind of what we got in the beginning. The scenes are great, I get it, animation is clean. I think all the development of the story so far is great, but I already know what's happening. You don't need to tell me every single episode again and again and again and take away 3 minutes of the episode just to do that again at every episode. I know what's happening. I know what the characters. All for One's resurrect with Ares' quirk, and Shigaraki's roaming around. It's not roaming. Is basically winning in the Coffin in the Sky. Dobby's resurrected himself by somehow copying Shota's quirk. I made my piece on that one. I don't agree with it, but I don't need to see this again. Especially if you're not going to actually show what's happening in those locations, then don't cover it. It just takes away from this fight, this episode, where we should be focused a lot of more action, a lot more scenes between One for All and All for One. I mean, that's what we've been working for, right? I mean, that's the whole reason why Coffin in the Sky is literally the main setting of the season so far, or at least half the season. And to see that we kind of didn't get to see the biggest fight that we should have seen right now take place, I'm a little sad by that. So that's why I had to rate it a 4 out of 10. But again, there's still some stuff that I like. And yay! I didn't say it earlier, but yay, Mirko's fine. My favorite hero is still fine. She is still alive, she is still breathing, and she is still kicking but in a matter of speaking, yay! So I'm happy about that. But overall, yeah, I'm a little disappointed. Hopefully next episode is better, but considering we left off with Spinner, I don't think we're going to be focusing on the coffin in the sky. Now, that's not to say that we will not get good action and won't get good scenes and good story development. I actually want to know why Spinner is actually fighting on All For One's side so closely. Technically he's following Tomura's, goal, but how is his involvement with this war going to basically shift? Like, is he like dedicating his entire life to All For One now, or is this going to be like a part of a bit greater scheme where he might actually turn and do something right for once? I don't know. At least that's the feel I get. I don't feel like Spinner is a bad guy. I think he's just on the wrong side of society because he is a heteromorph, and heteromorphs are kind of like, the prejudice against them is really high. They're like, people are racist against them, and so I don't think he's going to be all bad, but I do want to find out what happens to him in the end. And it looks like from this next episode, we're probably going to be focusing on the hospital and how he may end up rescuing Kurogiri. We'll see. As for anywhere else, I hope we don't get to see too much of anywhere else. Coffin in the Sky could use a break. From that, so I don't mind shifting away from it, but because of the way they left on a cliffhanger, should probably resolve that first. Even, like I said, if All For One is literally popping out of Shigaraki's body and they, become two people, show that first in like the first half of the episode, and then be like, okay, now we'll really get down to business. Now the fight's really going to begin. Shift, do the intermission thing, shift over to Spinner. Please do something like that, because I don't want to be like going from here, and leave all these other plots unresolved at the same time. Yes, that's my thought. So that's all I have to say about this episode. I think a little lackluster, but it's still enjoyable. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Did you guys enjoy it? Did you guys like the scenes that were presented here? I really enjoyed the fight between All For One and One For All, but at the same time, it could have been better. It really could have been better. But overall, it's still a good fight. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for the next week's episode. At least I think there's an episode next week, because we did skip one from last week, and I'm like, the season's really dragging on. We had holidays, 4th of July, the Olympics. Last week I had another break. I don't remember why that is. It's just all these breaks extending the season. We're only on episode 13. I heard there's supposed to be like 20 something episodes, I think. I'm like, kind of like, let's keep going. I want to see everything that's happening. This is like my favorite anime now, and it's like, I want to know what happens, and it sucks to watch on a week-to-week basis. My brother's just started finally watching it, and he's watched up to episode 3 now. He's enjoying it. I don't know how much, but we kind of agree on the same points, and I think that's great to see that we think alike. I'm not just crazy. I'm not just reading this off and saying crazy things, willy-nilly. So what I think is possibly true, and again, like I said with the X-66 jets from last episode going into this one, it was them, and they did carry him faster to the coffin in the sky, and he was able to get there in time. Deku, that is. So, like I said, I'm not saying I know everything. I don't read the manga, but I'm straight up going to think All For One's literally going to pop out of Shigaraki's body, and that's what's going to happen next episode. But we'll see. We'll see what happens, so stay tuned for that, and catch up my review as well. Otherwise, until then, have a great day, have a great week, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.